There's the shot, it's another one! David Smith, 2 goals in 90 seconds. Nigel Spink, the hero of the first half, picks the ball out of the net again, and Villa are in deep trouble.
Good ball through, and Gallagher's got 3 again. Oh, what a goal! Two in the space of a minute for Kevin Gallagher.
On the country. Great goal. Dion Dublin. Classic header. No more than Coventry deserve. They've been knocking at the door and now they've found the way through.
It goes towards this. It's 1-0 to Coventry. The man in the mask has broken the deadlock.
Jamie Allen threads the ball through. Fantastic finish from Matty Gordon. Barely 90 seconds gone.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Sky Blue Fans TV. My name's Mark Smith. Tonight we'll be talking about player contracts, as there's been no games, obviously. We're talking about player contracts, the comings and goings potentially in the at the end of the season. And second half of the show, we'll also be sort of looking at our last 8 games of the season. We've been joined by 4 guests tonight. Pleased to say the first guest I've got is Reese Small. I was going to add Reese now. Reese, how are you doing? Good evening.
Yeah, very good. You all right, Mark?
Yeah, not bad, thanks. All good, thanks.
Good.
Second guest we've got for tonight, and I'm just about to put him on now. On his debut on Sky Blue Fans TV, we've got Mike Seaton. Mike, how are we doing?
Evening. All right, you?
Very good, thanks. Yeah, not too bad. Obviously, been a bit bored with no club football the weekend, so I thought I'd fill up some time with some cough chat tonight to keep everyone entertained. Next guest is Mr. Glenn Watkin. Glenn, good to have you on. How are you doing?
I'm not too bad, Mark. Enjoyed watching the England game, but it was a bit of a snooze fest second half, wasn't it? So, yeah, but they won, so I suppose you can't complain.
Can't complain. Yeah, it was pretty. Once we got the 2 goals, and the second half was a bit of a snooze fest. But yeah, we'll take that all day long. And last but not least, I've got Glenn's dad, Russ Watkin. Russ, how are we doing, sir? Can you hear us, Russ?
Good evening, buddy.
Evening. Good stuff.
I can hear you.
Oh yeah, we're still saying Happy New Year. I suppose we are. Yeah, it's the 4th month now. Okay, I'm going to start the show with talk about player contracts. Obviously, there's been a lot of speculation in the media about obviously Victor Gyökeres being the obvious one. Just want to ask, say, Reese, and we'll go around the panel. Victor Gyökeres, if we don't go up this season, is he someone we should be cashing in, or should we be bending over backwards to try and keep him?
Well, I think from the club's point of view, we'd love to keep him, but I think it's pretty evident he's going to go. I think he'll go with our blessing because he's been brilliant the last 2 years. But if we get a good bid in for 20-25 million, I think we've got to take it, and then we can rebuild the team with that money. Hopefully, the recruitment team are already looking at possible replacements for him. So yeah, I think I've got that feeling that he's going to go. If the Premier League are calling and we don't go up, I think we've got a chance, but probably a slim chance of going up. So I think we've just got to look at the future and do what Brentford do. I think what they did before they went up, they sold their best players and built, sort of rebuilt their team around the money they made.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that personally. I think Gyökeres has earned his stripes. He's done very, very well for us. As much as I want him to stay, and I hope he does stay. I hope he stays with us when we're in the Premier League. That's what we all want. But being realistic, that is likely not to happen. Mike, what's a good figure for Gyökeres, and are you in favour of him going in terms of the situation we could find ourselves in, and if so, what sort of figures is a good amount of money for the football club?
I think it's a tough one because we've almost made life more difficult for ourselves by still having a shout at the Premier League. because he might sign a new contract. I think if he goes in the summer, like Reece said, he goes without blessing. He's done us a real job. I'd be surprised if we got more than 15 million with a year left on his contract. But then there's just that playoff carrot that's dangling, isn't there? And I think that's possibly the only way we keep hold of him, which is the dream scenario if we can. But
I think what I would probably say to that is that the club could offer him a contract, and that if the club comes in for an offer of around 20 to 25 million, then he's free to speak to that club, whoever makes the bid. That's probably the approach I would take if I'm Doug King, because we've got to be realistic. We want to get as much money as we can for our player. You're right in that he's got 1 year left in his contract, and he's not the only player 1 year left in his contract, as we'll come to later on the show. But I think that's probably the way I'd go, is to try and maximise what we can get out of it. So I think 15 million is don't get wrong, is a decent sum of money, but I think we can get more than that. When I see other players around the Championship getting sold for more money than that, I just think we can get at least 20, 25 million. That's just my view, because I think with Gyökeres, it's not just the goals, but his assists and his all-round play. For me, he's got to be at least worth 20 million. So I'm hoping the club will offer him a contract, and with that caveat, that's what I'm hoping for anyway. Glenn, what's your thoughts on the whole Gyökeres potential situation?
I kind of agree with what Mike said, because we've still got a chance of the Premier League. He's going to be stupid to sign a contract where we're potentially going to offer him Championship wages. So it's almost like we're going to have to offer him a Premier League wage deal, and that comes with a risk, because he could get injured and then he's stuck on Premier League wages. And so I think there is obviously rumour is there's a deal on the table. I think it's been quite evidently gone around social media. There's been a deal on the table for several weeks. I just think he's not going to sign it yet. But I do think 50 million it'd be giving him on the cheap, especially if Brighton have got a sell-on clause. And what you said's right. I can't think of another player in the Championship whose game and goals is the same as Gyökeres. I think Akpom's a great finisher, but his all-round game is not on the level of Vic's. And Dye's probably a class act and obviously an international, but he's not Vic on that level, I don't think. So, and I think anyone else you're looking at, I don't think they don't do the assists that he does. I mean, he's not scored that many in the last 8 games for us, but he's contributed pretty much in every game for us. So that's the positive with him. People are trying to stop him scoring, but he still has an impact on the game. That's why I think he's so good. I think with Akpom, if he doesn't score, I don't see really what he contributes to the game. But yeah, I think 15 million would be on the cheap side. But unfortunately, when your contract's 12 months, you've seen what's happened with Blackburn, with Diaz. What the club wants and what you're going to get are chalk and cheese, and it is all player power now. And he could decide to see it out for 12 months and stick with us. I mean, I think what he's got to look at is if Sweden gets the Euros, he's going to want to be playing, so he's got a chance of going there. I mean, there were very much cop from what I saw on against Belgium, but he's going to want to think that he's want to play regularly to get us a chance of playing for. So I don't think he wants to go anywhere, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Russ, what's your take on the Gyökeres situation?
Well, I think we get a deal that suits all parties really, to push the boat out, really what suits the club best. We set a figure. I think he's got to be a £20 million plus striker, forward, whichever you want to tag him into. And how many times this season have opponents' managers said he's the best thing since sliced bread that they faced? So he's been touted around, isn't he? Everybody's seemingly watching him every game. I think whatever suits the club and suits the player, really. He's given us good service, but I think obviously it's about time that we started to hold out a bit for a decent amount of money for players instead of just getting rid of them on the cheap, to be honest.
Yeah, I don't want to see him go on the cheap, but there is the problem of the fact that he's only got 12, 13 months left of his contract. So I'm hoping that we don't get backed into corner when we have to take a lower offer, which I don't think is what we want. But at the same time, there is that danger that he plays for 12 months and he goes on a free, and that's no good for us. So that's a danger. Obviously, Gyökeres is not the only player that's, well, certainly if we look to the end of this season, there's quite a number of players, and I'll read out the names who are out of contract. Michael Rose, Cole McFadzean, Fankasi Dabo, Liam Kelly, Tyler Walker, Marcin Waghorn, Todd Kane, Jack Burrows, Sean Maguire, and Da Costa. I mean, I think out of those names, we could all probably agree of who's going to go. One name I'd like to mention, Tyler Walker. What's the verdict, Reece? Do you think he's someone that you'd be offering a contract if you're Mark Robins, or do you think it's time for him to go?
Personally, I think it's time to go. I think he's come in and contributed the last couple of games, but I don't think that makes up for the seasons he's been here and contributed very minimal. I think there's a talented player in there. I think there is a player that needs to be unlocked, but unfortunately, the wages he's on and the time and patience maybe Robins has given him, he hasn't unlocked that potential. So for me, I think Walker needs to go to maybe a League One club or a promoted League One into a Championship club. And there's goals in him, but I just don't think his style of play suits ours. And I've heard, from what people are saying, this is Tyler Walker 2.0. I think if we actually break it down, he's had 2 decent games over the last few weeks, but for me, that doesn't earn him a contract. I think over the time he's been here, he hasn't really got going at all. If that's injuries or that's form, or he doesn't always look like he's that interested. His body language says he doesn't always look like he's on the same level as the other players. So for me, I think it's quite an easy decision. I'm sure it's up for debate, but definitely my opinion would let him go.
Yeah. One thing I want to correct, actually, I said Cole McFadzean out of contract. Of course, he's not. He's actually signed a contract, so that's one name I want to quickly correct that. Going back to Walker, I guess the only thing I'd say, Walker's defence maybe is the fact that he has been injured quite a bit this season. He hasn't had a lot of opportunities, and we've still got 8 games to go for him to sort of stay, put an impression in. Is he a striker that you think could be you'd see starting, for example, for Saturday's game against Stoke?
No, I don't think so. Robins has been quite complimentary of him on a few occasions this season, so I wouldn't be that surprised if we offer him a contract, but I don't think he's ever going to be a starter. And I don't think anyone's going to be... I think he'll be looking for somewhere he can go and play football, which would be League One. But from the way Robins has spoken about him this season, I think he might offer him a contract, but whether he takes it is another matter, because he's not going to be a starter for us. I can't see him starting against Stoke. I think he'll put Godden back in, because I think he's been doing all right, despite the fact he played. I didn't actually see much of the Blackpool game other than highlights, but I did hear that Walker had a good game. But yeah, I think he'll go with his trusted Godden, because Stoke's a tough game. I think Tyler Walker will be back on the bench and might come on if we need a goal or something. But like I say, I think Robins has spoken quite highly of him throughout the season, so I wouldn't be surprised if we do offer him a contract. But whether he takes it and whether any of us really want him to, it's another matter.
Yeah. I thought, to be fair to Walker, I thought at Blackpool he did actually play quite well, and it was one of them games where there was one opportunity where if Gyökeres could have just fed him in and you had a good run on the right-hand side and he didn't make that pass, he went for the shot. If he makes that pass to Walker and he sticks it away, then maybe he could go on and get another goal, maybe, and then we may be talking differently about Tyler Walker. But I thought, he hasn't had a lot of opportunity this season. I wouldn't say I'm a massive fan of him. My personal take is I think we should let him go, because I feel we if we want to get to the next level of the Premier League, is he the guy who's going to get us there? I've got my doubts, but obviously time will tell. Glenn, what's your opinion on Tyler Walker? Is he someone you'd like to see stay at the Sky Blues?
I would keep him, But I think it's on a caveat that the next 8 games he's got to show the performance that he showed against Blackpool. I think he hasn't really had a run of games with us. He's never really. Godden and Vic have always been ahead of him, and he had that spell where he scored 2 in 2 and then got dropped, and I think that was the wrong thing, and I don't think he ever recovered from that. And I think the Blackpool game, I like what I saw. He looked like the Tyler Walker that I'd seen the league the first season when he signed for us, where he was top scorer. He put in some good performances. Brentford at home was a really good showing. So I don't think he's ever going to be first choice, but I think there's a player there, and like Reece says, it's whether we can unlock that player. I mean, there's a player there who was scoring at a better rate than Ivan Toney was in League One, and then he got recalled back to Forest from Lincoln, and he scored shed loads for Mansfield. I just think the way we play doesn't get the best out of him. But I think I'd be tempted, especially against Stoke, I would go with Walker and Vic, because I think they're a physical side, and the way Walker put himself about against Blackpool is probably better at doing that job than Godden is in terms of holding the ball up and doing that. I think Godden's better just breaking out wide. So I would probably stick with Walker on Saturday against Stoke, and I think it's down to Tyler what he wants to do. Does he want to? Do we want to offer him a contract for a year and just assess it after pre-season? I mean, he had a decent pre-season for us this pre-season. He played quite well against Forest, and then he just kind of never really got a run of games. I thought he did all right against Burnley when he started, but then he gets injured. That's just the story of his Cov career. He doesn't seem to get that run of games, whereas Godden will get injured and Godden will always come straight back in. There's no doubt. Whereas Walker, I think, is constantly having to prove himself. But it's that we could see he could make himself a hero. He's got 8 games. He's playing basically for his future. He's put himself in the shop window to either get a new contract or to get other clubs wanting to sign him, because I don't think there'll be another Championship club that will take a punt on him, but you don't know. He might get a decent League One club that wants him.
Yeah. Do you share that view, Russ, on Tyler Walker? I mean, is he a guy that you feel that, give him 8 games and then, make a decision then, or do you feel he should go now? What's your view?
Well, over the time that he's been with the City, Robins has spoke on many occasions of how highly he rates him. He has persevered with him. He did have a cracking game against Blackpool, actually, offensively and defensively. He's good to drop it in at the back as well. And at this stage now, I think there's very little to choose between either Matty or himself, to be honest. And I'd go with the other Watkin camp and say keep Tyler in, to be honest, and give him a chance to have a run of games and do the switch for Godden to come on or whatever we feel was in the situation. But I do think, like others have said, there is a player in there, but he's never had a run of games. He's had many spells out through injury and whatever. It's obviously not down to him, but unfortunate circumstances. But I do feel at the moment he might just be slightly ahead of Matthews in the side.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I would probably start Walker against Stoke as well. I'm of that opinion, because I think you've got to give him a chance and say, look, this is your opportunity. You've got 8 games to go, and if I'm Tyler Walker, I've got to do everything I can to earn that contract. So there's a massive incentive there. That's what I'd be thinking by Mark Robins. I get the other argument as well. I thought from the performance he put in at Blackpool, I think he deserves to start against Stoke. I don't think he did anything particularly wrong really that game, and I'd go and start him. But Godden, in fairness, did score, so there is that. That's the other view, which I understand. I'd say to Walker, Stoke are a physical team. I think he would possibly be for this particular game the ideal second striker, but I'm quite happy to go whatever Mark Robins goes, because Mark Robins doesn't make many wrong decisions. But I think Walker's got a lot to prove, and maybe it's a good opportunity. If he can get us a few more goals and get us to 6th spot in the playoffs, then maybe we'll have a different opinion of him. I don't know. I'm just playing devil's advocate, but I think it's an interesting one. Got a comment here from Cobb Andy about Tyler Walker, saying that when he was at Portsmouth last season, he was very lazy and not that good, and that was the sort of feedback I heard about him, which I guess was a bit disappointing in the sense of if he did well at Portsmouth, then maybe we're in a position where we could have got a fee for him and sold him for a reasonable price, but obviously that's not going to happen. Just going back to the Gyökeres one, Feta D, McNally and a fee for Gyökeres from Burnley, so play and cash deal. Would you take any? Would you take that? What do you think about that, Mike? McNally for Gyökeres, is that obviously not the same position, but with potentially to get McNally on board, that'd be brilliant, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I'm probably Luke McNally's biggest fan in the whole world because I love him. Would I swap Gyökeres for him? No, but if we get a decent bit of money and we can still reinvest to replace Gyökeres, then yeah, I think for 23 years old, he could be our fads for the next 10 years. So yeah, I wouldn't say yes, I want to swap him for Gyökeres, but that's not a deal that I'd complain too much about. If we got 15 million in McNally, I'd be a happy boy.
Yeah, I wouldn't be against it. If we got a decent fee, if we got 25 million plus, maybe we paid say 2 or 3 million for McNally, so say around a 20 million figure, you can still reinvest. To me, that's good business. I think that's a very good deal. That's just my view, because since McNally's been the side with Fads obviously signed the contract, I mean, I can count on one hand how many goals we conceded, and that's not many. And obviously 9 unbeaten as well. And he's been an integral part of that. So yeah, for me, it's a no-brainer. If we could get McNally, it'd be brilliant, because let's face it, he's been one of the main, not the only reason, but he's been one of the reasons why we are where we are in the league, where we are just in touching distance of playoffs. Anyone else got a comment about McNally for Gyökeres as a swap deal? Do you think that's potentially a good deal for the club?
Potentially, Mark. Yeah, sorry, again, go on.
Oh, sorry, Reece, mate. I was just going to say, I don't think he'll go Burnley. As much as Burnley would love him, he'll go a better club than Burnley. And I think like Leicester have been linked with him. I think if Leicester stayed up, I think he would fit their style of play probably well. He'd probably fit West Ham's style of play, but they're a bit of a striker's graveyard, and he'd have a fair bit of competition there. Whereas I think Leicester, Vardy's on his way out. They're like the lone striker. He'd fit into that team ideally. I'd be very disappointed if he ended up at a Burnley. I think he's way above. In the same way like Everton have been linked with him. He's better than Everton the way they are at the moment. And I wouldn't rule out him going abroad. I mean, there was I think there was a PSG scout at one of the games. I think there was a Dortmund scout. It wouldn't surprise me if someone like abroad goes and takes a punt on him, because I think he's got that raw attribute and that potential that they'd like overseas as well.
I think the other thing as well is imagine if he made his Sweden debut last week against Belgium, and imagine, I don't know, I'm assuming they've got a game up tonight or tomorrow, but imagine if he actually gets a goal or two for Sweden, because how much will that then drive the price up? That's the other thing to factor in. But then we keep going back to the contract situation, that he's only got 12 months to run. So I would just like to think maybe end of the season, if for argument's sake we don't get promoted, which I hope we do get promoted, but if we don't, then it'd be nice if we could negotiate maybe a year extension to that, and then try and get a big fee for him. That's probably the best scenario we could get. But yeah, I mean, McNally, I'd love to see him come to the club, but I'm not going to lie, it's going to be tough. I'm kind of hoping it will happen, but we'll see. A couple of other players I want to bring up who are sort of out of contract. Just want your thoughts. We've got Michael Rose and Dabo. So let's start with Michael Rose. Is anyone of the opinion that he should be offering him a new contract, or are we generally in agreement that he should be going? What's the verdict on Michael Rose? Anyone can chip in.
I personally wouldn't offer him a contract. He's been a good player for us, but I think the injuries again has kept him out the side. We've brought in a lot of loan players like Doyle, Panzo, McNally. So for me, that speaks volumes to what Robins doesn't really trust him. Maybe I think it was the Huddersfield game when we won away. I noticed that Rose come over, clapped the fans, and walked off, and left the rest of the players out there having fun, jumping around with the fans. Little things I noticed like that. I don't think he's a bad player. I think he's still potentially got a future, but I've just got a feeling he's going to be let go, especially if we've got eyes on McNally. I mean, that could be a tricky signing considering, how we stood firm with Burnley and O'Hare. I don't think the relationships are that great when Burnley were coming knocking on door trying to buy O'Hare at the start of the season. So I think if Burnley do go up, it might cost us to bring him. Again, if it goes, I think when he goes, we might have to pay a little bit more than what they paid Oxford, I think it was. So I'd love McNally to sign, and then that would probably deem the end for Rose.
Mike, are you in agreement with that, Michael Rose? Is he one you want to see keep, or do you think it's time for him to go?
I'd agree. I loved League One Michael Rose. I thought he would be one of the players from our League One side that would step up to the Championship the best. He's had good games, but he's had poor games. He's just never found that consistency. Like Reece said, with the injuries and things, he's just been too up and down. And Robins clearly doesn't trust him that much. He's too old to develop too much more. And yeah, if we have got a chance of getting McNally, I think that's his race run. But he's not a bad player. I just don't think he'll sit on the bench when he can go and play week in, week out for a decent League One side, I think. Or even a less sort of a lower Championship side that aren't quite as far along in their development as maybe we are. But I do love the player. Just for that one season. Quality.
Yeah, he's been a good servant as well. I mean, not just him, obviously Liam Kelly. I think Liam Kelly's probably like to go as well. But yeah, I think Rose has been a good servant, but I would say it's probably time for him to move on. Although, if you look at the defensive situation, obviously Fad's just signed a contract, but a lot of them defenders are loans, aren't they? We haven't got many actual players that are actually signed really for next season. Not that that's a reason why we should be signing Michael Rose, of course, but it's definitely there that I'm sure Robins, Dean Austin and co are looking at to address it in the summer. What's your view, Glenn, on, and then I'll move on to Russ, what's your view, Glenn, on Rose? Is he someone that you'd be saying here's a contract for next season, or time to go?
The problem is, there's obviously come out in the press that Rangers are looking at Panzo. So I think if Rangers come in for him, they're obviously going to have European football. They've got a bit of money behind them. They're going to blow us out the water in terms of getting Panzo. So I think Panzo, sadly, isn't going to be an option next year. And it's a case of, do you want to rely on a defence full of loans again? So you look at it realistically, defensively, we've got Faz guaranteed for next season. Probably Dabo's going to get a new deal, but you can't rely on him week in, week out. You've got Burrows, you've got Bidwell, and then obviously we've got the rumours that they've been looking at a lad from Stoke, Morgan Fox, but he's kind of a left back, plays centre half, and obviously Jay De Silva, who's a left wing back. So really, it's, do you want to go and get two new, potentially probably three new centre halves to play alongside Faz? You're not probably going to get Doyle back. We're not going to get Panzo, and I hate to say it, I don't think we're going to get McNally, sadly, unless we can maybe do it as part of the deal for O'Hare. I don't think they'll get Vic, but O'Hare's obviously not going to be fit for a while. So I've got a feeling with Rose, I think we would offer him a new deal. I don't think he'll want to sign one. I think there's rumours that he's got a League One club lined up. I think his agent's a bit of a, I won't use the word, but that's why I think his agent thinks he's a bit better than he is, because obviously when he got in just before he got injured. There was rumour. Well, he got before the season closed down. There were rumours of Leeds looking at him. You just can't string a run of games together without getting injured. It's the same with Dabo. And the games where you needed him to step up when Faz wasn't there, I thought the performances weren't up to it, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, I tend to agree with that. Russ, what's your verdict on Rose and Dabo? Are they two players that you can see signing on for the next season or not?
I think both players pretty much mimic each other's recent careers with Cobb. Both have their moments in the side, have a good moments, but 9 times out of 10 they dropped out of the side through injury again. Both Dabo and Rose have picked up a reasonable amount of injuries, niggling injuries that has obviously hindered them. A happy regular playing Rose is a good player, but he doesn't play regular enough, does he? Because of injury. Rose the same. I've said it in the past, and Dabo to me has never really totally recovered from that bad hamstring injury that he had. At Blackpool he was bang average for about 20 minutes on the Saturday, but I think Michael Rose, I think his time's probably up if I'm brutally honest. I agree with Mike. He had a great season in League One, fantastic season. Look, for us to build on. And I think Dabo might just sneak a new contract out of us. But to be honest, I think Rose wouldn't sign back with us anyway. I think he would be looking to be playing more football than he's playing with us at the moment. So I would say Rose to move on and Dabo just to keep hold of as a backup. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, fair enough. Let's move on to sort of players' contracts that are sort of expiring in sort of 24. Got 12 years left to run, and there's quite a number of players in that bracket. Matty Godden, Jamie Allen, Callum O'Hare, Gustavo Hamer, Ben Sheaf, Simon Moore. Mike, are you concerned with the number of players that have got 12 months left to run, or not really?
It's the lower priority, I think. Like was mentioned, O'Hare's not going anywhere this summer because he's not going to be fit until at least September, so he's safe. Hamer, I think if we get decent money for him, we don't want to lose him, but there's not so many rumours about him as Gyökeres. Those are probably the only two that I'd be a bit concerned about. The rest, is anyone going to come in and pay money for Jamie Allen? I love Jamie Allen. I think he does still have a future with us, but I don't think anyone's coming in and paying money for him, so he's not going with a year left on his contract. Same for Godden. We'd be lucky to get rid of Simon Moore at the minute, the way this season's gone. So it would only be Hamer that I've got a bit of concern about. But then you never know. Robbins has said about contracts being sorted in the background and things. Hamer could be one of those, hopefully. So no, I'm not overly worried about those with a year left, apart from Gyökeres.
Yeah, I guess the only one I'm thinking of is the goalkeeping situation. Now, obviously, we know that Ben Wilson has signed a contract recently. Simon Moore is obviously up. The contract's up in 24. Is he someone you maybe try and sell and move on? I guess depending if the club wants him, of course. But I personally don't think. I mean, he had a poor, no doubt about it. He's had some poor games this season, but he had a good start to the season last season. Is he someone maybe we should try and back and sort of say, let's give him another chance, or should we look to sell him? What's your view on Simon Moore?
It's a difficult one because last season he was, for me, the best keeper we'd had for a long, long time. Like he was so composed at the back. He made very few mistakes, and then ever since Ben Wilson got that sort of little run at the end of last season, and then Moore started this season and was calamitous. Got a chance again at Wrexham, and he didn't do that much wrong, apart from the cross shot that went in. But he didn't do an awful lot right either. He didn't do anything to sort of say, "Wow, get him back in." So I and I might get shot down for this because I know Wilson's just broken the record for clean sheets, but I'd be moving more on and looking for a new number one, and Wilson goes back to being number two in the summer, but I could get shot to pieces for that one.
Yeah, no, that's fine. That's what this platform's here for. So, Reece, what's your view on the goalkeeping situation? You've heard Mike's views. What's your view?
I think it's frustrating because Moore came with a good reputation. He was solid the first season. I think Wilson has deserved to have that opportunity after how Moore started the season, and then, like Mike said, he came in against Wrexham, and I had high hopes that Moore would have a good game and then push, give Robin something to think about with the number one spot. But again, I just thought his confidence is shot to bits. I think what I would do is I would move Moore on, and I'd bring in an experienced keeper or a young up-and-coming keeper who's going to push Wilson. I mean, I've never been Wilson's number one fan. I've always made that clear. But I think the record is, and then this season, you can't really knock him. I think there's always a mistake in him, and he's a bit wild at times. But the defence he's had in front of him has hardly given him much to do. But when he's had something to do, he's done his job. So I think Wilson deserves the right next season to be given that number one spot, but I think he needs a keeper that's really going to push him, because I don't think Moore is. I think Moore's done here. I think it's a shame, unless Robbins has got an idea where, between now and the end of the season and the summer, he's going to try and rebuild more. But unfortunately, when he's been given the opportunity to right the wrongs, he hasn't done it. So I would probably move Moore on and bring in a keeper that's going to really push Wilson. But like I say, I'm not in disagreement with Mike about Wilson being number two next year. I just think he deserves that opportunity to prove that, look at us when we spoke about Ben Sheaf when he first came. Look at what we spoke about Jamie Allen at the start of the season, the tail end of last season. Look how they're performing now. So I think Wilson deserves to be in the same bracket as them two, given the opportunity to keep improving. I think Wilson hasn't played that much really in his career, and this is the first time he's been he's claimed a number one spot. So for me, like I said, I've never been his greatest fan, but he definitely deserves the opportunity to keep proving and keep proving us all wrong and keep improving for the side.
Yeah. What's your view, Glenn, on the goalkeeping situation and the sort of number of players whose contracts are sort of up next year?
I think next year you obviously got to be looking at the summer to try and get some people contracts extended. I think I'll be amazed if Hamer, O'Hare and Sheaf aren't on Doug King's to-do list, but it's probably not the most biggest priority in the world. And obviously contracts do take time at the moment. I think moving on to Wilson, I think there's always this thing in my mind that some players have this golden season, and it's, do they do it again? Like you've had it in the past where like Michael Ricketts had that great season, got England caps, and then just faded off the face of the earth. And that's the thing: is Wilson having this one good season of his career, or is it the start of maybe him going on to achieving his full potential because he's got the confidence that I am a number one? I think it must be hard for Moore now. He's a number two, and I just think he seems just to have lost that confidence he had. I don't know what happened to him. I know he had COVID, I think, and got dropped, didn't he? And Wilson came in, and then he missed a few games. And then he just seemed to be just making like rash decisions and mistakes, and stuff just doesn't seem to be working for him. And I think with a goalkeeper, that's probably the worst position, because if you make mistake after mistake, it starts to play on your mind. I mean, you only got to look at like Karius, I mean, and with Liverpool, and look how long that's taken him to get back. And he's never really been a number one anywhere else, really, and recovered. So I do think it more. I would worry if we had more in the team in a very important game, because I don't think I've got the faith in him that I have with Wilson. In terms of a goalkeeper that we're going to bring in, I think probably if we're going to bring another goalkeeper, and I think we're probably going to look at a goalkeeper who's better on the ball, better with his feet, maybe someone who's more like Morosi was, who can just ping it a bit more. But is that someone you're going to get from a lower league, or you're going to take a Premier League goalkeeper on loan? If you take a Premier League goalkeeper on loan, they're going to want him to play. I don't really want to go in the foreign market. Maybe you look at one of the relegated sides. Maybe Huddersfield go down. Lee Nichols did well for him last season. Good record. Maybe he'd be someone who'd be more of a competitive with Wilson. Or like I said, you go and find maybe a youngster. I think Kieran Tyler needs to get away and get some game time. I think Bilson's probably not going to be renewed, and there's a few good other young kids coming through the goalkeeping ranks, but you don't want them as a number 2 in the Championship yet, really. So I think they'll probably look and move Kean out on loan next season, and maybe bring somebody else in. I think more will shake his hand and say, if you can find another club in the summer, you can go. Obviously, if we can't find a suitable goalkeeper, then they'll keep him for next season as well. I don't think you're going to get a substantial amount of money for him, and I doubt he's on that good of wages that he's going to take a massive chunk of our wage bill off if we keep him on.
Yeah. And lastly, Russ, what's your view on the goalkeeper situation and the number of players that are out of contract in 24? Is that you concerned by that?
To be honest, I was a little bit shocked how sort of Simon Moore's sort of world's fallen apart a little bit. Wilson's definitely developed now. He's had a run of games. Ben said, "Is it one of these ones that goalkeepers suddenly have a great season, and can he continue that going forward? Could you, if we go into the Premiership, would you have him as a Premiership inverted commas goalkeeper?" I think Moore will be gone. I think at the end of this season, I can't see him hanging around. He needs to be playing football somewhere else. I know, obviously, we've got developing goalkeepers in the lower ranks. I know that the club thinks quite highly of Kieran Tyler, but he needs to be playing more adult football. He's very good. He's very good with his feet, actually, for a goalkeeper, Kieran Tyler. But I'd be happy to stick with Wilson. But would you? I don't know. I'm not sure whether we need a more established goalkeeper if we went higher up. I wouldn't like to say he hasn't let us down so far, has he? He's had a couple of ricks, but Moore was pretty average when he came into the side. So unfortunately, not that you like to see. I think regarding the other situation, I think obviously we build around the 3 names that we spoke about before: Hamer, Sheaf, and O'Hare. Really, if we can keep hold of them. I'm delighted to see Ben Sheaf playing so well. I remember having a conversation with him at the end of the previous season and said, next season is going to be your season, and he shook my hand. He said, yeah, it will be. I expect big things from myself. So he's proved us that. He stood out when he came on for us in the second half against Wigan, and against Blackpool he was outstanding against Blackpool as well. So hopefully we can keep hold of the main players in mid. Hamer's a big must, I think, for us. Hamer is a massive must.
Yeah.
Jamie Allen, I don't think he would see any progression. He's had his impact with us this season. He's been scoring a few goals, and he's a bit of a Duracell, isn't he? He works up and down, but I don't think he would be quality for us going forward in the coming seasons. So yeah, I'd love to. Hamer's a must for us. I think Hamer and Sheaf especially. Callum, I would even put Callum behind them too slightly. So new goalkeeper, maybe, I'm not sure. If we get promoted, I would say probably yes.
Yeah, I think it's. I know what Mike's saying about Wilson. It's one of those ones where I'm not always convinced with Wilson. I think sometimes his distribution for me can be a bit dodgy sometimes, but he has had some good games as well. I think he probably does deserve the opportunity to stake his clay at number 1. But it's like everything. If no one comes in for Moore, then he's staying with us. End of story. And then I think we'll start with those season. But there's no doubt about it. I think I think Moore did have a very good season the previous season. I think he's gone through a confidence crisis. I think the only thing I would say is maybe if he has a good pre-season, and he can just get psychologically through that bad spell. And I think there is a keeper there in Simon Moore. He did a good job at Sheffield United, and I remember when we signed him, and Sheffield United fans were very upset to see him go because in that season when he was with us with Sheffield United, and when he left Sheffield United, they struggled in that position. So yeah, I mean, I think it's a tough one, but I would say I wouldn't be surprised if we look for another keeper, but who we get is another story. I'm not sure who's out there who would probably strengthen us in that position. I think Hamer is a massive priority for me after Gyökeres. We've got to tie him down for another couple of years because he's a massive player for us, and I think he's had a brilliant season, as has Sheaf as well. I'm sure O'Hare, obviously, he's injured for a while, but I'm confident that he will stay with us for a while because there's definitely a massive affinity with the players in the club, and I just feel that I'm fairly confident we can keep some of these players, but obviously time will tell as to what happens next. We're going to have a slight short break, and then we're going to talk about the 8 games left this season. So the questions I'll be asking the panel is, can Sky Blues get into the playoffs? So based on the games we've got left. So for you panelists out there, please prepare yourself for any answer to the questions. And also we welcome any comments from you listening. We've had a few comments today, so thanks for that. So we'll be back with you in just over a minute's time. Welcome back, everyone. So second part of the show, we're going to talk about our remaining 8 games this season. So Sky Blues are obviously entertaining Stoke this Saturday coming up. Then we face a trip to Swansea. Then we've got home match against Watford, away at QPR. Then it's Blackburn away, home to Reading and Birmingham, and we end the season at Middlesbrough. Obviously, given the current situation, remember we're only 3 points off the playoff spot. On a scale of 1 to 10, I'll start with you, Reece. Scale 1 to 10, how 10 being super confident, 1 being not at all confident. On a scale of 1 to 10, how confident do you feel of us getting to the playoffs based on those fixtures?
Yeah, just looking at the fixtures, I think we have a chance. I think we've got, just looking at QPR away, I know QPR are not in great form, but they've got some good players in there, so I can't see us really winning there. Blackburn away, Watford at home, Stoke at home. Yeah, I think the chances we are quite slim. I think I'm trying to keep my feet on the ground a little bit and enjoy the ride more than anything. But I think we've got a chance, but I'll be more than happy finishing 8th, 7th, rather than getting in the playoffs and maybe potentially getting like sneaking to playoffs in 6th and then getting Middlesbrough and getting turned over quite comprehensively. I don't know. I may be looking at it half, the glass half empty as such. But I think that if O'Hare and Palmer are both fit, I'd feel a lot more confident. I think having Sheaf back is massive, but I think we're just going to miss out. I don't see that as a bad thing. I know a lot of fans will probably think I'm a clown for saying that, but actually finishing just outside the playoffs, he's just progressed on last year. And then if we can bring in a couple of, try and strengthen our squad, then I think we can have a real good go next year. But yeah, I think we'll just fall short, to be honest.
Yeah. Before I bring in Mike, bring out a few comments from the audience. Skyblue Sam, I think we'll win 5 out of the remaining 8 games. This is from your average Cov fan. Ultimately, the playoffs is out of our hands. It's in the hands of Millwall and Blackburn, so I need them to slip up a few times. Well, I think they've got games they might be playing against sides around the playoffs. So, Feta D, I think we'll finish 7th and just miss out. Obviously, I hope I'm wrong, though. USB. What's your view, Mike? Do you think we can do it or not?
It's slim chance, but I mean, Lad mentioned about Blackburn slipping up. Well, they can slip up against us. That's for one. There is a chance. There's always that side that comes surging in and make it into the playoffs with a late surge, and at the minute, that looks like it could well be us. I'm just a bit scared that we'll do a Huddersfield or a Barnsley after the last couple of seasons of getting in the playoffs unexpectedly and then sinking like a stone. I think in a weird way, I think a bit like what Reece said, I'd quite like us to finish 7th with a decent finish to the season, but just miss out, strengthen, get the new side together in the summer, build around the ones that we really want to, that are already here, and have a proper go at it next season when we haven't got shambles off the pitch at the start of the season. Hopefully won't have 4 million injuries, and just have a proper go at it when we're a bit better prepared. Like Reece said, we don't want to just get absolutely annihilated by Middlesbrough in the playoff semis, or even worse on TV at Wembley. As much as there is a large part of me that thinks brilliant, I'm going to book a Wembley hotel the week of my 40th birthday. I don't think I'm going to.
You don't look 40 at all, so that's what I will say.
Cheers, mate.
That's all right. That's all right. Glenn, is there a reason? Do you feel more optimistic than Reece and Mike? Do you think we can do it?
I'm going to probably be a bit ultra positive. I was looking at it and looking at the players we've got. We've actually got quite a few. We've got playoff experience or been in playoff chases. Doyle was in a playoff chase last year with Sunderland. He's obviously been to Wembley, and they obviously got promoted. Panzo was around Forest. Bidwell's been part of a Swansea side that's got in the playoffs twice. Obviously Simon Moore's been around promotions. You've got Faz. I do think that we're not this naive side that people make us out to be. We've got a bit of know-how in this league, which might help us. And obviously we've still got a large portion of the League One side that got promoted. I think the negative is we're going to have to get results against teams we don't historically do well against. Obviously, Swansea's a bit of a graveyard. QPR is. Middlesbrough never tend to do well there. But I think if the way I would look at it is if we can go unbeaten until the end of the season and we can go to Borough and we've got a chance in the playoffs, I think most people would take that. And I think if we get into the playoffs and we're still on a relatively good run of form, no one in that top in that 4 playoff teams are going to want to play us, because I think all of them we've given them a game this season so far and caused some problems. I would even think if Sheffield United drop down, I don't think they'd want to play us, because I think we've given them a game both times. The away game we just defended awful, and it's pressure, isn't it? Pressure does weird things in with the playoffs. But I would say really, if you were totally logical, you would say Blackburn and Millwall should get it. If one of them don't get it, you'd kind of say you look at Norwich and look at Watford with their squads. You think if either of them get their act together, they should finish above us, and even West Brom to a degree. But you can make an argument for all those 3 sides why they wouldn't. So I think if we can stay in touch around Easter, and I think if we have a good Easter haul, like 3 or 4 points, I think we're definitely going to be in the mix. And if we can go to the last 3 games of the season, crazy things happen last 3 games of the season because people are chasing points. Yeah. So it's one of them. But yeah, I think I think Millwall will probably be the one to drop out because they do have a real tough run of games. But then so do Blackburn, and Blackburn have bottled it a few times before. So you never say never in this league. But yeah, I'll be happy if we can just go to Middlesbrough and have a crack at the playoffs, even if we miss out.
Yeah, I think Russ. I think you're more optimistic, or am I wrong?
Well, I'm going to go the old route, game by game. It's in our hands, isn't it? It's in our own hands. You know, I don't like trying to read too much in this team's in form. They're going to play this. We've got to play them. They've got to play such and such. We've got to look after ourselves, don't we? And play game by game and hang in there, keep in there as long as we can. And then, like everybody else, nerves do come into play. The teams that you think, oh, you get a result there. You don't know. I just want to see us, considering the start of shambles that we've had this season with different things, injuries and the bloody pitch and God knows what. I think we our homes, and I think we've got to nick a couple of results away. You know what I mean? I think Blackburn is a possibility for, like Glenn said, Swansea is a bit of a graveyard, but one of the times we've got to do them one time. And I'd like to see us carry it as far as we can, to be quite frank. And I think the support is going to be a big thing for us. The fans are absolutely a fantastic driving force for this club, and I think we can play our part as well as the players and Mark. And considering the injuries that we've got currently at the moment, AC out the side and whatever in particular, I think we are a group that sticks together, and I think that's going to be an ace card for us going forward. So I would say 60-40 that we could get into the playoffs.
Yeah. I think I've said on previous shows I think we'll be 8th around that sort of position, but we are more than capable of getting in the playoffs. There's no doubt about that. I know there's games. I look at the games. Swansea away. It's not as you mentioned, right? It seems like any team we play against, any opposition we play who playing white as their first kit, we seem to struggle, be it Preston or Swansea. But the first for everything, I think we're due a result at Swansea, because we should have beat them at our place. And that's what frustrates me, is you look back at games in the season where you've dropped them points. Millwall, we dropped points at their place when we were 2-0 up and we lost 3-2. Swansea were 3-0 up and we dropped points. I guess the counter argument is we've won games in the season we wouldn't expect us to win. We won at Watford. We beat West Brom at home. We've beaten Sheffield United. We've beaten Blackburn at home. So we are capable of mixing with these sides. And I think on our day, we can give anyone a good team. It's just on our day we could lose to any team as well. That's the thing with Cobb. We were a bit unpredictable, I guess. That's the thing. I think Stoke, I don't think will be an easy game Saturday, because Stoke are in good form. I mean, I say 3 or 4 games ago, before their massive win at Sunderland, that I looked at Stoke and I thought easy 3 points here. But now I'm thinking it won't be. It's going to be a hard game. But I think it's all to play for. I really do. I think we can do it. I'm always a bit of everyone who listens to me will know I'm a slightly glass half empty person. I'm just concerned with the number of injuries it's going to take its toll on the squad. I think Reece made a good point. I think if we had O'Hare, we had Casey Palmer available to us, I would feel more confident, because even in games where we might be losing, you could bring one of those two on and they can change a game for you. So that's my slight concern. But I'm really excited about the whole season. I think it's been a really enjoyable season, and whatever happens, I've really enjoyed it. I don't know what you guys' views are. I mean, it's great that we're talking about can we get in the playoffs or not, because I remember way back at the start of the season when I went with you, Reece, to the Norwich game away, I was absolutely deflated. We lost 3-0. I was thinking, oh my God, we're in a relegation dogfight, and obviously we're not. But it's been a great turnaround, and maybe it's for the best that we don't go up, and then we try and regroup it next season on a ground that hopefully we'll we'll be playing week in, week out with no pitch problems at the CBS, and we can really give it a good crack. I mean, do you think in the long term that might be good for the club or not?
To be honest, Mark, like talking like you were then was, yeah, but at the start of the season, I mean, how great is it now that if any one of us sitting here in September, October saying that we're in touching distance of the playoffs, I think it's an unbelievable turnaround. But a point that I will make though is I would rather be hunting the teams down in the playoffs than being in the playoffs now and being hunted, because I think right now we're not expected to make the top six. So maybe the pressure is on the other teams because they're going to be playing each other as well. So I think, like Russ said as well, take it game by game. I know Robbins does anyway, but yeah, I think the only couple of stinging results we've had lately is the draw at home to Hull and the Wigan draw. I think that was the only sort of stumbling blocks that could end up costing us. Because if we miss out by sort of 4 to 6 points, you're going to look at games like that, like you said about the Millwall away, Hull away as well. You know, them sort of games that we really, what will determine us being in the playoffs or not, I think are going to be them games. But yeah, definitely great position at the moment, and all the pressure isn't necessarily on us. I think we can just go into the last 8 games and just go for it and see what happens. But like I say, the teams above us, like you say, Blackburn are unpredictable. You've got Millwall in there. I think Luton have been on a good run, but they're probably due a bad run. Not saying that they're going to have one, but the Championship normally tends to work like that. Like I say, we have got a chance, but we are 3 points behind, but the other teams are going to drop points. So, yeah, game by game. And I just think we should enjoy it more than anything, even though we're having this conversation.
Yeah. I mean, let's face it, if we win, let's say for argument's sake, we do win every single game, eight wins, I think that puts us on like 81 points. And, you know, you'd say if you don't get in the playoffs with 81 points, you'd be like, it's just very, very unlucky, isn't it? I just think, I think every game will pose a challenge. I think the only good thing about Saturday, Stoke haven't got anything to play for. That's the only I would say. I mean, apart from pride, they're not going to go up. They're not going down. I think even the win at Blackpool, you might say Blackpool at the bottom, we should be winning them games, but it's never easy when you're playing those sort of teams in the bottom that they're playing for their lives. And I thought we put in a really good performance at Blackpool. Anyone else? I mean, is there any games you're really concerned about? I think Borough away is the one for me at the end of the season. But before that, I would say
QPR purely because they're a bogey side for us, and Ainsworth is just going to get them probably fired up, and that's probably the banana skin that I see on it. I think we'll get a result against Stoke because we have a very, very good record against them. And we always tend to play well against them historically going back. I think Watford are a bit of a mess, so I think we'll get something against them. Swansea, depends which Swansea turns up. If it's a Swansea we played for the first 60 minutes, we'll beat them. If it's a Swansea that turned up for the last half hour against us, we could be in trouble. And then I just think QPR, just because it's notorious, they're too good. They're too good a side with the players have got to be where they are. But we know what it's like when you hit a bad run. It happened to us under Slade. Once the wheels come off, it's very hard to turn it round, no matter what you do.
Yeah.
I think Blackburn away is the one that worries me the most. I know what Glenn says like about QPR because we've been shocking there for ages, and we have got some decent results at Ewood down the years, but there's just a lot of pressure on that because they're a team that we're chasing down. It's a really tough place to go, and John Dale Tomlinson has got them playing really well. Plus, Dom Hyams pretty much nailed on to score against us because he didn't in the home game. So, being an ex-Cov player, he's definitely going to score against us in that game. So we're already a goal down before we start. But yeah, that's the big one because if we lose that, that's a key rival pulling away from us as well.
See, I've got a different view. I think we can get a result at Blackburn. I've seen them a couple of times at home. They're a decent side. Of course, they wouldn't be where they are. They're not a decent side, but there was nothing there that really frightened me about Blackburn. So I think we could get a result there. I think Swansea have been a bit erratic at home. I think it's about we need to we need to win there. We need to win all our games, but it's those sort of games away. We need to find a way of winning. I don't care how well or badly we play. If it's just win 1-0, have a scruffy goal. I'd say about all 8 games, but yeah, it's a tough running, I would say. But look, every game's a tough game. There's no easy games out there. I think we can get a result at Blackburn though. I look at the game. I think any of them games though we could be unstuck. Let's be honest, because it's the Championship, right? It's a very unpredictable league, isn't it? There's no certainties any games you play. But I look at QPR away. They've had a poor season, and we shouldn't really fear QPR. I think we can go and get a result there. Personally, I'm not worried about that. It's the games like Watford at home could go either way. I think they're a decent side. I think Reading and Birmingham at home, I think they're games we should be winning. But Birmingham, we never seem to win at home. We always seem to draw 0-0 against them. Although I know we beat them last season at their place, but our home record in recent games against Birmingham has always been a 0-0 draw, isn't it? So it's I don't know. I think I'm just going to enjoy it. I don't know, but that's all I can say really. I've enjoyed the season immensely, really. But I think it's just we've got to do every we can to go up, because you just don't know when you're going to get this opportunity again. It's all very well saying let's regroup and we'll give it a good crack next season, but you just don't know what's going to happen in the summer. You don't know who's going to come and go, who we're going to strengthen, and really, I think we just got to try and go for it, really, and not just be happy finishing 7th or 8th. Really, as a club, we can't be thinking that way. If I'm a player, that's what I'd be thinking anyway.
I'd use the Leicester City analogy. With a chance of winning the league. You might not get that opportunity again. You don't know what's going to happen next season, and that's the thing. So you've got to go and give it your best shot. And if we fail because other teams do better than us, then I can take that. But you don't want to throw it away because of your own errors. And like I say, last season we had to go to games last season, and we dropped points. And that was it. Teams did better than us against us. Forest beat us, and that probably pretty much nailed us. But I do think we've got the easier run in, and it's the Championship, and we know there's other teams that are going to get 3 results. You'd never bet your house on Wigan getting a result at Watford, and you wouldn't have thought that Huddersfield had beaten Millwall, and that's or even drew with Norwich before that. So there's going to be some crazy results. As long as you just keep yourself in that touch, you've always got a chance on it. And but it would just be typical Cov to have such a shit shower season and get in the playoffs and get up. And it would just be the typical what we do. We get promoted when we're playing out of Coventry. You know what I mean? We have our worst season ever, and then we get promoted in the playoffs. And win it with absolutely obliterate Notts County and then win the playoff final with 2 defenders scoring. It's just typical Cov that will just do the unexpected.
Yeah. Well, let's see what happens. Obviously, we'll wait with bated breath on that. Want to say we'll wrap up the show and say thanks to all our guests tonight: Reese, Mike, Russ, and Glenn. Thanks for coming on. It's been brilliant speaking to you about all things Coventry City. Our next show will be on Thursday. We'll be previewing the Stoke game. Stoke fan coming on Thursday as well. So that's 7:30 start for that. So stay tuned for more announcements on our social media channels. Thanks to everyone for all your comments tonight. Thanks for listening to us. I hope you enjoyed the show. So next show out Thursday, and we look forward to speaking to you then. Good night, everyone. Good night. Thanks, guys.